In this video, I'm going to give you some real examples of field recordings made with the Zoom H1 and the Zoom H2n. I'll run through the common scenarios, including mounting the recorders on top of your camera about 8 to 10 feet away, placing them on a table with a tabletop tripod, recording in using a lavalier mic, and then we'll make some conclusions at the end. If you'd like to follow along blind, the thing to do is minimize this window and write down your own scores for what you think of the examples as you hear them. I won't give any spoilers through the audio, but you'll be able to see what recorder I'm using in the video. All right, hope you find this interesting. 7723. About 40 years ago, I was taking a long trip on foot over mountain heights, quite unknown to tourists. In that ancient region where the Alps thrust down into Provence. All this at the time I embarked upon my long walk through these deserted regions was barren and colorless land. Nothing grew there but wild lavender. 1228. In any case, I started toward it. It was a shepherd. 30 sheep were lying about him on the baking earth. He gave me a drink from his water gourd, and a little later took me to his cottage in a fold of the plain. He drew his water, excellent water, from a very deep natural well, above which he had constructed a primitive winch. This is 3367. There he began thrusting his iron rod into the earth, making a hole in which he planted an acorn. Then he refilled the hole. He was planting oak trees. I asked him if the land belonged to him. He answered no. Did he know whose it was? He did not. He supposed it was community property, or perhaps belonged to people who cared nothing about it. This is 7468. Years afterward, Giano recalled the turning point in his life, that moment in the afternoon of December 20th, 1911, when he could spare enough pennies to purchase the cheapest book he could find. It turned out to be a copy of Virgil's poems. He never forgot that first flush of his own creative energy. My heart soared. This is 4243. The wind on its tiles made the sound of the sea upon its shore. The place was in order, the dishes washed, the floor swept, his rifle oiled. His soup was boiling over the fire. I noticed then that he was cleanly shaved, that all his buttons were firmly sewn on, that his clothing had been mended with meticulous care. This is 8725. That was the whole of our conversation. When he had set aside a large enough pile of good acorns, he counted them out by tens, meanwhile eliminating the small ones or those which were slightly cracked. For now he examined them more closely. When he had thus selected 100 perfect acorns, he stopped, and we went to bed. 1065. Before leaving, my friend simply made a brief suggestion about certain species of trees that the soil here seemed particularly suited for. He did not force the point, for the very good reason, he told me later, that Bouffier knows more about it than I do. This is 4623. Years afterward, Giano recalled the turning point in his life, that moment in the afternoon of December 20th, 1911, when he could spare enough pennies to purchase the cheapest book he could find. It turned out to be a copy of Virgil's poems. He never forgot that first flush of his own creative energy. My heart soared. This is 1141. It was understood from the first that I should spend the night there. The nearest village was still more than a day and a half away, and besides, I was perfectly familiar with the nature of the rare villages in that region. There were 4 or 5 of them scattered well apart from each other on these mountain slopes, among white oak thickets at the extreme end of the wagon roads. So as you can probably tell, in these scenarios, there wasn't a huge difference between the H1 and the H2n. The quality was very good with the tabletop tripod, it was very good with a lavalier mic, and it was a little mediocre from the camera mount. In general, this is a good lesson that you should always try to put your microphone as close to your subject as possible. That's been a real lesson for me doing all these tests. If you have other questions about the quality of these microphones, you're going to find that I'm posting many different comparisons on my channel in the coming days. So I think you might find what you're looking for. I think the real way to decide between these field recorders is going to come down to what features you really need. And I'll be doing a future video comparing the features of these two microphones. Once you've decided to make your choice, I hope you'll support my channel by clicking a link from my description.